Hi there, my name's Tom and I work at the Mullany Fund, and today I'm going to talk to you about student finance and university funding. Now I know that doesn't sound like the most interesting of talks, however it's a really important subject to get your head around as a student because there is an awful lot of information out there about student finance, about university funding and about the dreaded phrase student debt. Now, some of that information is true, but a lot of that information isn't accurate. And it's really hard to know what to believe and what not to believe. Now, this talk is designed to provide some simple points to show you what kind of financial support you can expect as a student if you decide to go to university. Because there's no two ways about it. University does cost money, but it's absolutely true to say that you don't have to be rich to go to university, that you don't have to have really well-off parents and carers to go to university, because there is an awful lot of support available to help pay for students to go and study at university. So this talk will be really useful to Year 12 students who are thinking of applying to university in September, but it's also going to be really useful to anybody who thinks that actually maybe they do one day want to go to university, because this will show you the sort of support that you can expect to receive. Now, the figures we use when we're talking about amounts of money, that's actually relevant to students starting in September of 2020, so it's the most recent figures that we've got. Obviously, if you're thinking of going to university starting in 2021 or even later, then the specific amounts of money that we're showing on the slides in this talk won't be specifically relevant to you, but they will be a really good example of the sort of amount of money that you can expect to receive to help you to go to university. So let's look at the cost of university. I've already said that university does cost money. It's not free to go to, and so it's certainly worth considering the expense and worth looking at the sort of money that it does cost and also the sort of support that you can expect to receive to help you afford to go to university. Now, broadly speaking, the costs of university can be really easily split into two main areas. You've got tuition fees and then you've got living costs. So to start with, let's take tuition fees because that's the slightly more, I guess, complicated one, but it's not even that complicated. So tuition fees is the amount that universities charge students every year for the pleasure of being taught at that university. Okay, so at the moment that's set at a maximum of £9,000 per year in Wales and £9,250 per year in the rest of the UK. So that's £9,000 a year that universities charge you to be taught at that university, to go to lectures, to go to seminars, that sort of thing. Now, £9,000 or £9,250 if you go to a university outside of Wales sounds really scary, but there is an awful lot of financial support available to you should you wish to go to university. So don't be put off by that figure. We're going to look at the support that you can receive with that figure in a minute. Okay, so that's tuition fees. That's the amount that universities charge you to go to university and to be taught there. And then on the other side, you've got your living costs. Now, that's everything else that you need to spend when you're studying at university. So that will include rent if you decide to move away from home and go and live in halls of residence in university accommodation. That might be things like phone bills, any clothes or food that you will buy throughout the year. Obviously, lots of students like to go out and have parties and celebrate in the evenings. That's not free either. So it includes all things like socialising as well. So basically, everything that it costs you to be a student is what we would consider living costs. So two main areas of cost: tuition fees and living expenses. So let's go back to those tuition fees then, the amount that universities charge you to be taught at that university every year, that scary £9,000 figure. Well, the first big message to take home is that there is no upfront cost. Nobody expects you or your parents or carers to have £9,000 in their back pocket to pay for you to go to university. Okay, so if you're a Welsh student, then you can get a full tuition fee loan. Now that's where the government will pay the university in your name. They'll pay that £9,000, okay, in your name every year. and then you pay that back when you finish university. So when you're thinking about starting university, you don't need to worry about that £9,000 because the government, they lend it to you and they pay it directly to the university. So you don't even have to worry about paying them. All right. You do pay it back when you finish university, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But your tuition fee loan is paid directly to university, so you don't have to worry about it. Tuition fees, although they're the scary thing, they're the thing that is talked about most in the news and in the media, they're actually really easy to get your head around. It's what the university charges you every year to go and study there, and the government will lend you that money and they pay it directly to the university in your name, so you don't have to worry about it at all. So tuition fees, done, nice and easy. So let's have a look at the other side of things then, living costs. So everything else it costs to be a student at university. Now, most Welsh students, almost all Welsh students, will receive a grant to help them with these living costs. Now, a grant is free money that you never have to pay back. So the Welsh Government will give most Welsh students a certain amount of money for free every year, and they will say, there we are, that's to help you live whilst you're being a student. Now, sometimes that grant isn't enough for you to live off entirely. And so what happens is you are also able to take out what is called a maintenance loan, all right, to help top up what you're getting to live on every year. So you get your grant from the government, which is free money. You're also able to take out a maintenance loan, which is more money every year that you can then use to spend on the things that you need to spend at university. Now, your grant, your free money, and your loan, the amount that you pay back, those amounts vary according to your situation, according to whether you're studying full-time or part-time, whether or not you are living at home or living away from university, and also the household income of the house that you're living in before you go to university. So let's have a look at that in a little bit more detail. Now, on the screen now is a table with lots of facts and figures, and I don't necessarily want you to worry too much about those figures, but they are a really good example of the sort of amount of money that you can expect to receive in the form of the grants from the government and the maintenance loan to help you live as a student whilst at university. Now, this table is for a student who would be starting university in September of 2020. Now, the students decided to move away from home. So they're going to live at university, and they're going to live at a university outside of London. And the reason that bit's important is because if you go to a uni in London, you get a little bit more money from the government, because obviously London is a really expensive city to live in. If you live with your parents, you get a little bit less money from the government because they think you won't be paying as much rent, for example. Now, what you can see there, actually, the important figure to look at is on the right-hand side, now highlighted in green. And that means that for a student starting in September 2020, they will receive from the Welsh Government £9,810 to help them with their living costs, to help them with things like rent, with phone bills, with food, with socialising. Okay, so every student will receive £9,810 regardless of their household income, regardless of the income of their carers or their parents. Okay. Now, how that amount is made up depends on the household income. So if you are living in a household income of £18,370 or below, so quite a low amount every year, then you will receive a very high grant. You'll receive about £8,000, you can see there at the top, in free money. So that's money that you get given every year that you never have to pay back. And then to top it up to that £9,810 figure, you'll get given a £1,710 loan that you will have to repay back at the end when you finish university, and we'll talk more about that later. And you can see that the more your household income is, the lower the amount of grant you receive and the higher the amount of loan that you receive. So really, your household income will affect how much you're paying back at the end of university, not how much you receive. Because every student who's domiciled in Wales will receive that £9,810 of financial support every year to help them to live at university. That's on top of, that's in addition to the tuition fee loan, which is paid directly to the university. So you don't have to worry about tuition fees with this money. That's already been paid for. This money is just to help you live, all right? So already you can see actually you're getting about £10,000 a year to help you live as a student at university. You really don't need to come from a well-off family in order to go and have a good time whilst you're living at university. So to help us understand that a little bit more, let's have a look at a specific example of a student who's going to university in September. Now, this student knows that their household income is about £35,000 a year. So that's the amount that that student's parents bring into the house every year. That's how much they earn. So if the household income for this student is £35,000, then they're going to receive about £5,200 of free money every year from the government that they never have to pay back to help them to live at university. Remember, the tuition fee loan, that's already been paid to the university. That £9,000 a year to be taught at uni, the government's dealt with that. They've paid that in this student's name. So he gets they get £5,200, okay, as a maintenance grant, which they never need to pay back every year. To top that up, they then receive about £4,600 in a maintenance loan. So that's the amount that they will have to start repaying back when they finish uni, but they don't need to worry about that just yet. So in total, they're getting about £9,800 a year to help pay for rent and food and socialising as well. All right, and this is for a student who's moved away from home, who's living outside of London. If they were living at home, they might get a little bit less. If they were living in London, they'd get a little bit more. But already you can see that they are receiving quite a lot of financial support to help them out. Now, on top of the support that we've talked about from the government, from Student Finance Wales, there is also an awful lot of support that universities, specific universities that you apply for, will be able to provide. Now, that financial support from universities is often in the form of bursaries and scholarships. Now, bursaries and scholarships are just other words for grants. They're other words for free money. And it's money that's paid to you every year as a student from that university to help you with your studies. And it's money that you never have to pay back. Now, a scholarship is normally for a student who excels in a specific area. So it may well be that you compete either nationally or in county sports, and if you are someone who is an excellent sports person, then a university may well give you a sports scholarship in order to convince you to go to that university. Because frankly, the university wants you to go to their uni so that you compete in their sports teams and you win them lots of sort of prizes and celebrations. So you may well be able to get a sporting scholarship. Lots of universities these days do academic scholarships. So if you receive very high A-level results, for example, if you get 3 A stars at A-level, then it may well be that a university will give you a certain amount of money simply for going to their university with those high grades. And that money is something you receive every year, and it just sort of, it's in addition to the maintenance loan and the maintenance grant. And so you can use it to spend on what you want really to help you whilst living at university. Scholarships are really worth looking into a little bit more because not everybody knows about scholarships, and so I'd recommend that you Google the university you're interested in and then type in scholarships and just see what comes up, see what information the universities are providing you. Now, in addition, every university that charges tuition fees should really be giving out bursaries. Again, that's just another word for grant. It's just another word for free money. And they will provide bursaries to students from low-income backgrounds. Now, low-income backgrounds, again, refers to the household income of the house that you were in before you went to university. Now, the amount of household income that they look at, the amount of bursary they give you will vary according to every different university. But again, it's worth looking into those bursaries because they can be considerable sums of money. Some universities will give students from the lowest income backgrounds up to £2,000 every year. And that's in addition to other forms of financial support. So again, really worth looking at bursaries. Best thing about bursaries are you don't have to apply to them. Universities will use your financial information that you provide when you apply for student finance, and then they decide if you're eligible for the bursary and they pay it directly to you. So it's a nice hassle-free way of getting a bit more free money. And then finally, some universities will offer a tuition fee waiver. So if you remember back to tuition fees, that £9,000 figure that universities charge you every year, to teach you. Well, some universities will say if you're from a low-income background, then they might offer you half-price tuition fees, or they might give you tuition fees for free. Equally, if you are studying certain NHS courses, certainly in Wales, then you may well be eligible for free tuition fees, so that you don't have to pay them if you're studying, for example, nursing. So again, it's really worth looking at a bit more detail online to see if your course or your background may make you eligible for a tuition fee waiver or a scholarship or a bursary. Essentially, though, it's just more free money. Okay, so let's look then at what happens when you finish university and when it's time to start repaying some of the money that you have borrowed. Now, what happens is the amount that you've borrowed every year in the form of a tuition fee loan, so when the government pays that £9,000 every year to the university in your name, that and the money that you've borrowed to help support you living at university in the form of a maintenance loan, that is added together. All right, and you start to pay that back when you finish university. Now, this is a really important part of the talk because this is the part that puts students off from going to university. Because anyone who's half decent at maths thinks, well, if I'm borrowing £9,000 a year just to study at university in the form of my tuition fees, and then I'm borrowing thousands of pounds every year to live at university in the form of my maintenance loan, that's starting to add up to a really large figure. That's a big amount of debt. And lots of students will think, gosh, no, debt is terrible and I don't want to get into it, so I'm not going to go to university. Now, the biggest message from me is that I understand that we are rightfully concerned around debt, but student debt is unlike any other form of debt that you will get into in your life. It's not really debt in the same way that other forms of debt is. And the reason it's not is for several reasons. The first one is that you only start paying this back when you can afford to do so. You only start paying it back when you finish university and you get a job that is paying you over a certain threshold. And at the moment, that threshold is just above £26,500 every year. Okay, so you only start paying back when you're in a job and you're earning more than a certain amount of money. You're earning more than £26,500 a year at the moment. And then you pay 9% of anything that you earn above that amount. All right, so anything above £26,500 a year that you're earning in a job, you will start to pay that back at 9%. Now, this is the key difference to any other form of debt that you will get into, because if you start earning below that threshold, so if you lose your job, then you stop paying back. If you don't start in a job that's paying that much, if you start on a lower paid job, then you won't pay anything back. They won't expect you to pay anything back. You only start paying this back when you can afford to do so, when you are earning above that threshold. And that's really different to other forms of debt. Because if you were to take a loan out to buy a new car, or if you had a mobile phone contract, they wouldn't care whether you were in work or not. They would expect you to pay monthly back that loan. And if you didn't, or pay monthly your mobile phone contract, if you didn't, they might take your car away. If you didn't, you might get taken to court. Here, you can't afford to pay it. If you're not earning over that threshold, you don't have to pay it back. All right, so that's a massive difference, isn't it, to what we would consider normal debt. And on top of that, anything you haven't paid back after 30 years is written off. You don't have to worry about it. 30 years sounds like a long time, but again, that's not like normal forms of debt. It's just written off after 30 years, so you don't have to worry about it into your old age. Now, I'm not an economist. I'm not going to go into interest rates. Interest is an amount of money that is charged to you for the privilege of borrowing the loan, all right, for borrowing the money. Now, interest rate is charged, so it won't just be the amount that you've borrowed in the form of the tuition fee and the maintenance loan. It will be a little bit extra because the government does charge interest. Now, you can go and check the rates online because they do change, but it's not a huge amount. And also, importantly, that interest doesn't impact how much you pay back every month. What impacts how much you pay back every month is how much you're earning in your current job. So let's have a look then specifically at some examples of how much you might expect to repay depending on how much you're earning currently. Now on the screen there is a table that shows the yearly income, so the amount of salary that you're earning, the amount that you're earning for your job, and also then the monthly loan repayment, so the amount that you'd be paying back to the government from your wages. So you can see if you're earning dead on that threshold, £26,575 a year, then currently you won't pay anything back. If you're earning £27,000 a year, that's just a little bit under the national UK average at the moment, still not a bad salary at all, you're going to be paying £3 back every month, okay, just £3 out of your wages. It's a very small amount. So let's look specifically at somebody who has gone to university, taken out the loans and the tuition fees, that kind of thing, and has now got a job that is earning them £29,500 every year. Now that is a little bit above that £26,575 threshold. And technically, actually specifically rather, that's £2,925 above the threshold. So they're going to be paying 9% back of that £2,925 that they're earning every year. Now that equates to £21 a month. So they're earning almost 30k a year and they're paying back £21 a month for their loans. It's a very small amount. Most people pay more than that, double that, for the latest iPhone, on contract. It's a very small amount. They actually don't have to worry either about paying it. They don't see that money. It goes out of their account. It goes out of their wages before they receive their wages. All right, so it's paid directly to Student Finance Wales, and you don't have to worry about it. You can see the more you earn, the more you're paying back every month because you can afford to do so. But again, even on 35k a year, you're only paying back about £60. So it's not a huge amount of money. And as soon as this person who we're looking at here stops earning above £26,575, they'll stop paying back. And they'll only start again when they can afford to do so. Okay, so we're not going to go into huge amounts of detail about applying for finance, but it is worth thinking about. It is an online application that you do in year 13. So once you've applied to university, you then apply for student finance. If you're living in Wales, you would apply for finance through Student Finance Wales. Now you do need the support of your parents and carers. There are bits of the online form that they need to fill out. So it's worth talking to them early to make sure that they're prepared to provide you with that assistance. As soon as the application's open, and they're normally in the February of the year 13 year, as soon as they open, my recommendation would be to make that financial application, okay, because it does take a little while to complete. You don't have to have decided which universities you're definitely going to yet. You can have applied to your 5 universities, and then you can also make your student finance application, all right? And then you can tell Student Finance a bit later on, once you've decided on what is your firm choice of university and what is your insurance choice of university. One final key thing to talk about when applying online, there will be at some point a little box that you have to check to give Student Finance Wales permission to share your information with the universities that you've applied to. Now, at the moment, people are very concerned around their data. However, if you don't check that box, universities won't know whether you're eligible for those bursaries that talked about. So check that box, and then universities can automatically say, right, brilliant, this student, we can give them £500 a year because of their household income. So they can do all that before you get there. So it's worth checking that box and sharing that information with the universities that you have applied to study at. Okay then, so hopefully you found that really useful, and we're just going to summarise some of the points. It is true that university is expensive to go to. There's no two ways about that. But as you've seen today, you don't have to be rich. You don't have to come from a well-off background to be able to afford to go to university. There is an awful lot of financial support available to you in the form of loans and in the form of grants, okay? So the thing that won't stop you from going to university is money. You can absolutely afford to go to university if you work hard and you achieve your place there. Tuition fees, a thing that is talked about all the time, that scary £9,000 or £9,250 figure, the amount that universities charge you to be taught at their university, that's actually the easy bit. It's paid directly to the university in your name. You don't have to worry about that, all right? and then grants and loans are given to you to help you to live on top of the tuition fee loan. All right, so both areas of cost, tuition fees and living costs, are covered. You are supported in both of them. And then finally, you only start repaying the loans when you finish and you start earning more than that threshold. All right, that £26,500. If you stop paying that, if you stop earning that rather, you'll stop paying back until you start earning above that threshold. If you never earn above that threshold, then you will never pay anything back. And after 30 years, it's completely written off. So I hope that you found that interesting. I hope that you found that useful. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to contact us, and you can do so by emailing us at office@themullaneyfund.org. That's office@themullaneyfund.org. Thank you very much. Good luck with your applications, and let us know if you've got any questions. Bye-bye.